I'm Joanne Law, Director of Studies for Mediation Institute and co-founder of Interact Support. I'm on a mission to prevent violence by training and supporting dispute resolution practitioners. Today I'm talking with Andrew Dane, Accredited Workplace Mediator who specialises in online mediation. Andrew's going to share with us his absolute passion for online mediation and also some hints and tips for mediators who are establishing their professional practices. Give you a bit of a background. Andrew is the founder of Online Workplace Mediation Services in the United Kingdom with a background of 40 years human resources, people management and employment law experience gained at the coalface with a diverse number of varied organisations. He's a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Development, empanelled as a mediator with the Asian International Arbitration Centre in Malaysia, also a member of the Sports Law Association in Malaysia, and he's a member of the UK's Civil Mediation Council. Currently, he's located, and I'm speaking to him from London in England. Thank you and welcome, Andrew.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me on your vidcast, Joanne. It's an honour to be here and a privilege.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, from a very cold London, I'd just like to say that my experience of online mediation is that how I got into mediation probably was for a number of years I acted as an HR manager with various companies, and for the last 15 years I've been doing self-employment, and I was probably done about 50, in excess of 50 employment tribunals. My very first one was in 1976 when they were called industrial tribunals. I got very tired of grievance hearings, disciplinary hearings, appeals. They were destroying relationships. So I thought there must be a better way. So what I did was to a self-funded residential accredited workplace mediation course. It was 5 days, very intense. And then afterwards, I made a 20,000 word dissertation to the Open College Network and eventually became an accredited workplace mediator. Then I became very interested in online mediation and found that, there is so much useful advantages of online mediation. There's no cost involved. That's the main thing. And you can do more on online mediation than you can in doing face-to-face mediation. Or we can have a blend. It's good for, sorry.
No. What you can't see in this podcast is that Andrew's sitting apparently in front of a lovely view of the Thames and Tower of Big Ben and the London Eye. Very impressive. And he talked to me a little bit about his use of green screen technology and virtual backgrounds in the mediation process.
When I first meet them, if you were my client, what I would do if you were in an office somewhere, I don't know where, I'd go on the internet, find out, get a picture of the outside or the inside of your office, and I'd put that as a virtual background. And I've had people saying, "Are you outside?" That's
Wonderful.
No. And it really it engages with them, the inside of your office, and I put that as a virtual background. And I've had people saying, "Are you outside?"
That's wonderful.
No. And it really it engages with them. Video online mediation is a different technique, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
You find that it is, and I mean, I find it quicker. Do you? Do you find it faster? You reach it. Yeah. For some,
people tend to be able to be a little bit more focused.
Yes. Yeah, and I find that that helpful. And what I'm going to do is download some music. So when they're waiting to come on, you can put computer to sound on computers so they can hear the music whilst they're waiting, and it has a soothing effect.
Okay, in the waiting room. Okay, I didn't...
Yeah, you can do all that. Yeah. Now, what Zoom are doing, I've got a green screen behind me, for the virtual background.
Yeah, so I noticed you did your online training originally with Giuseppe Leone. He was my first introduction into online mediation as well. I think for many people around the world he has been.
Yeah, the virtual mediation lab in Hawaii. That's where, yeah. So, I mean, it was quite a revelation. I've always been interested in communication, so talking to people all over the world didn't really make any difference. But the thing with online mediation is, if you're doing it in different countries, different continents, you have to be very aware of the cultures. You know, I may make a joke to you, and you may not find it funny.
Mm.
So you have to be very careful. But that's
Yeah.
basic. One of the things, the cultures.
Yeah, look, I think you'd be right because even though you might have different cultures, if you're in the same country, there's probably more common ground than yeah, in different countries there's probably very little common ground. And it sounds like you've got some experience working with interpreters as well in
Yes,
online.
that's very true. Yeah, actually, I entertained the interpreter yesterday. I met him online. I met him through LinkedIn. Actually, he was in Iran, and through LinkedIn, we organized an online workplace mediation simulation with an interpreter. So we had the interpreter who was based in Tehran, and one of the parties was based in a different location in Tehran. The other party was in a nice city in Iran, Esfahan, he had actually attended, Mehdi his name was, attended Newcastle University. They could speak English, but not very well. So I was talking to Amir, the interpreter, in English. He was interpreting into Farsi and so on. So on. It went very well, actually, and I did a little report on it. That was April 2016, but things have changed a little bit since then with the
Mm.
political situation. So that was an interesting experience, believe me. It was the first
Yes.
time it had ever been done. So with online mediation, you could be anywhere. You could have an interpreter in any part of the world, if you
Yeah.
required it. So it's possible to do.
Mm. Yeah, and so the interpreter, he was a professional interpreter, had no mediation training. Is that?
He had no mediation training. He's still he speaks perfect English. He's very well educated. He's left Iran now. As I said, we entertained him yesterday, and he's doing some work here. He's a journalist, actually. That's what his profession is. Very well educated, nice fellow. Um, and we're even considering, yesterday we had a discussion to sort of restart the process of trying to do some mediation in various countries with an interpreter, with Persian
Yeah,
speaking people. Yep,
yeah, no, very very interesting. Oh, I'd be it could be helpful because we've got a lot of yeah, people that have sought refuge in Australia as well, um, where that could be something that would be helpful. Um, Yeah. So your business is online workplace mediation services. Is that
that's correct. I've relaunched my thing. I'm calling myself Mediation Express. It indicates, it can be done very quickly.
yeah,
Now, online mediation, as you know, is 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're not tied to the 9 till 5, Monday till Friday regime. I can see
that's
you in
right.
3 weeks about Thursday, and you'll have to travel, stay overnight, and it's
Can't
good.
do after hours. The air conditioning's off in the building and all
That's right.
things.
That's right. And, accessing venues. Good for disabled people, online mediation, because they find traveling to the venue challenging, finding
Mm,
parking spaces, public transport. Also, one of the advantages of online mediation, we've got the same problems here with cyber harassment, sexual harassment,
mm,
and 90% of cases are never reported formally because, it could be damaging to the career. But there is a chance that you could meet the alleged perpetrator online,
mm.
sitting at home from the comfort, security, and confidentiality of your own home or office. And you could probably get a better agreement,
Mm.
if you could both be apart rather than the old animosities, or there is a perceived or real power imbalance and you don't want to go to mediation, and ideal for that sort of thing.
Yeah, and look, one of the big advantages of being able to organise things quickly is that they don't get to escalate as much because that delay, well, once people are already into conflict, it can get really bad really quickly.
Absolutely. I mean, the longer, the longer a conflict is left, it festers and grows, and if you can get in early, that's the idea. So if
Mm.
online mediation can be introduced early, we can do, for instance, if we have a harassment or bullying case, we do it online, and then we could establish a working relationship by having, or re-establish the working relationship by having a face-to-face meeting afterwards, and
Yes.
follow-ups. That's important. The follow-up to make sure that the working relationship that we've agreed is being sustained. But it's most online mediations are completed in a day, less.
Mm. Yeah.
I find it quicker. Quicker.
Yeah.
I suppose you have the same experience, yes?
I do, yeah. It's yeah, people just seem to be able to focus and get through things quicker. One of the things I noticed that you said was people who like to smoke, to being able to not be locked in a room away from their cigarettes.
Well, people still do smoke,
Yeah.
and if it relaxes them, they can smoke at home. They probably, well, they wouldn't be able to smoke in the office, I'm sure. So
No.
if it relaxes them, they can smoke at home,
Yeah.
and I find that they're quite relaxed sitting in their own environments, in their own home or office environment, safe, secure, confidential. And one of the things with online mediation, of course, as you probably know, when we do the mediation ground rules, we have to make sure that there's no one else in the room, they're not recording this,
Mm.
and that the matter is confidential. And
Yes.
one of the advantages of online mediation, I'm often asked the question, what about security? Well, with the program we use, Zoom, it's end-to-end encryption. So not unlike some of the other platforms, Skype and various. And Zoom is
Mm.
very good because it's a stable video and audio. I mean, we're talking, in
Yes.
different time zones. We could be next door to each other,
Yeah,
and it just
exactly. We're on the opposite ends of the day, on the opposite sides of the world.
that's right. I've just woken up and you're going to bed.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. So you use Zoom, yeah, we like Zoom as well, and particularly the unique meeting number, because I certainly wouldn't want to be giving out my Skype number to clients to check in. They
Exactly.
stop
I
me.
mean, this is the meeting we're holding at the moment is, of course, it's between you and I, and it's
Yes.
confidential. So if there's any doubts about the security of online mediation, you can
Mm,
discount those. There's no problem with that.
yeah. Yeah.
But
Okay. So I noticed in your career you've been really building on that background experience that you've got with tribunals and workplace. Sounds like it was the using online mediation was something that you pretty much were really interested in almost right from the start. Is that the
Well,
case?
I've always been interested in communications. I used to do a
Mm.
lot of work on the radio a few years ago and talk to Australia and around the world.
Okay. Yep.
And it's nothing. I've
Mm.
always been interested in different cultures and the way people do different things. And one of the things that I do actually is online workplace mediation simulations. They're complementary. I would rather, it keeps me sharp, and it introduces mediators into online mediation, and it also provides them with, they manage their conflict management skills better. It's
Mm.
better during a mediation simulation to make your mistakes and
Yes.
learn from them rather in the real mediation, the
Yes.
live mediation. I write up the scripts based on my long
Yeah.
experience in human resources and people management, and send them off to the parties, and it becomes very real. We meet,
Mm.
we do we have the individual meetings to tell them the ground rules, no interrupting, treat each other with respect, and you'll each get an opportunity to talk, and you're not recording. There's no one else in the room unless we agree, and it becomes very real. Speak to the other party and then get them both together and let them have their head for a while.
Mm.
And it becomes very intense, and then eventually we arrive at the memorandum of understanding. The beauty of online mediation also is that it's very quick. We can on screen share the screen.
Yes.
We do the agreement to mediate. We can email it off immediately if they're happy with it. It's got everything in, very written in plain English,
Mm.
and they sign it, send it back. I've got a copy. The two parties or the parties have a copy, and everyone's happy, and off we go. And then we can share the screen with annotation on the screen. It's quite simple.
Mm.
Um, we can write up comments. The other advantage of online mediation, I'm talking to you and I could be writing here, you wouldn't notice it.
Yes.
On a face-to-face mediation, if I'm writing, we've all been in meetings where oh, he's
Yes.
writing a lot about me. I wonder what he's saying. And then trying to find, and it's less,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, it's less intrusive, and yeah, whereas most of us like to make little notes just as thought prompters for ourselves. So, um, no, that's a really good point. I know I'd mainly do family mediation, and quite often my clients do want a support person. But when they do, we negotiate it, but they can be in the room off camera, able to support their client without being as obtrusive as having a support person in the room who's, maybe gagged, but their body language isn't.
Yes, I know. That's one of the things people say. You can't get a rapport. You can't see
Oh,
the
yeah.
body language online. Well, you and I, we've got a rapport. We can see our expressions, and we've established a relationship. It's not difficult.
No.
It's not difficult. There are many advantages in online mediation, but if anyone's interested in simulations, get in touch. I've done some work, and it's interesting to find out how other people's employment law works and how they
Yeah.
have their workplaces. I did one with a lady in Brisbane. She'd been in the Australian Air Force, and she was in Brisbane. The other party was in Rio de Janeiro, and she was a judge, and the other one was mediator, and it was interesting to see the different cultures, how they worked. And
Yes.
I've done them in England, I've done them in Iran, of course, the United States, and it's interesting. You learn a lot.
That's a wonderful offer, and I'm sure that some of our members would be really interested in taking you up on that. So, um, I guess the easiest way is if I put your website and how to contact you up on, alongside things, and you could maybe
Yeah,
connect.
they just send me an email,
Yeah,
and I'll communicate with them, and I'll just respond immediately, and we can get together online and have an interesting conversation and
yeah.
learn a few things from each other. I learn from everyone. I learn every day.
One of the things that I did want to talk to you a little bit about was, some tips or thoughts that you've had for people entering the mediation industry, and certainly the online simulations that you're offering is a really good one. So people do, they might do a course, they get certified, but then, you really want to stretch yourself beyond. So that's great. Any other thoughts? I think you mentioned something about, trying to continue to stretch yourself out of your comfort zone.
That's absolutely true. You learn nothing in the comfort zone, nothing at
No.
all. So, Howard, it's a tough business. I mean, people think it's a bit of a sort of tree hugging, softly, nice. It's a tough business, and it's
Yeah.
very difficult to get into, very difficult. So, I would start now by going onto all the social networks, post on LinkedIn, get as many contacts on LinkedIn as you can. I mean, just as an example, um, about just over a year ago, through LinkedIn, I established about 5,000 contacts in Malaysia.
Mm.
And then I whittled it down, and I actually ended up going to Malaysia and making a lunchtime talk, as they say, with a firm of solicitors in Malaysia. They were very interested. Ma Weng Kwai, they're one of the leading lawyers in Malaysia, made a presentation there all through, and I organized the people just through emails and LinkedIn, and get
Yes.
out, go networking. If you're in any of the human resources, the Australian Human
Mm.
Resources Institute, go networking. It's very tough, very difficult, but start now. do the online mediation simulations with me, or anybody else for that matter, but I would invite you to come with me. Use social networks, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook daily. Keep sending the message out about online mediation. Tell people what you can do, who you are, where you are. And I spend probably the first hour of each day from 5 till 6 just answering stuff on email, on LinkedIn, sending happy birthday, congratulations on your new job. Keeps you in the picture.
Yeah.
And think of a theme, think of a theme for your online mediation, because people think online mediation, they're very skeptical, always say, well, you haven't seen it, that's why. I can understand you haven't seen it, that's why you're skeptical.
Yeah.
But by all means, start early, keep going, it's tough, and step out of your comfort zone. You never learn anything sitting there comfortable.
No, exactly. And look, the very fact that we're speaking is testament to what you're saying, because you did wish me happy birthday. Thank you very much. And I had a look at your profile and said, oh, wow, this guy really got some, some experience, and he's doing some interesting things. I might just ask to see whether he'd be interested in sharing some of your knowledge. So, you've got this opportunity to, talk to people in Australia and whoever else listens to this recording, simply by wishing me happy birthday.
There you go. We're all human beings, there's no rocket science in it. It's just being nice to people and,
Yes.
helping and being pleasant. I found out through my life that everybody's the same, race, color, religion, doesn't matter what you are. We're all the same. We're all looking for one thing, happiness.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
That's it.
Exactly. And I guess the other thing that you mentioned was about the unconscious biases, which is something that we've all as mediators have to be constantly thinking about. The very fact that they're unconscious means that they're not as clear to us as they could be.
There's a program on, when I was doing my 20,000 word dissertation for the Open College Network, I accessed a website where you could actually determine whether you did have unconscious bias, and, and it's quite interesting actually, but we all have them.
Yeah.
Everyone has it, so it's, you've got to be very conscious that
Mm.
if you're dealing with a different name, a different culture, a different religion,
Yes.
that you have to be very careful.
That's right. What are the
And
assumptions I'm making?
yeah,
Okay.
get them. Yeah, and one of the big things is listening.
Mm. Yes.
I hear, but I don't listen.
Yes.
Because most people are waiting. When someone's talking, they don't take it in. They're waiting to think, what am I going to say? In response to this. But it's best to try and listen. It's a skill. Listening skills are very difficult, aren't they? To listen to someone, what they're saying, and then thinking about it. And as you know, we reframe their comments, tone them
Yeah.
down. But listening is a big thing.
Oh, look,
It
it's
is a tough
very,
business.
yeah, look, it's very true. That's one of the things that I find is really obvious to me, because I train mediators, how how little people check in to see whether they've understood. So it's that active listening of that. So they listen, or they think they're listening, and then they continue on without actually saying, is this what you mean?
Yes.
And I guess that's the gift we bring into that relationship as mediators, isn't it?
It is. But there's always a point in a mediation when yes, I'm getting there. When they start to talk to each other in sensible terms. Because, what I tend to do, I did a mediation. It was a face-to-face mediation with two fellows who'd fallen out for 20 years, actually. And the client rang me and said, we need your services. And they worked in a very dangerous situation in a tunnel. And they were very angry with each other and all sorts of things. I'll not go into the detail, but I thought, well, how can I get these guys after 20 years to see each other? And it was toxic. So they worked in a very dangerous environment. I've been in the control room of the tunnel, and we have, going through the tunnel, hazardous materials, petroleum, all sorts of things, and they have to watch very carefully. So I thought, how can I get these guys to understand? So I thought, well, there was a case in 1972. It was British European Airways, quite true, this one, where there was a captain and two first officers on the Trident. And BEA were going on strike at that time, and the captain, who was ex-Air Force, said aviators shouldn't go on strike, and they began to argue very much on the ground. And very, very, they wanted to go on strike, and the argument continued onto the aircraft. And when they got up to about 1,500 feet, someone had written on a whiteboard some derogatory remarks about the captain, and the argument got out of hand. The alarm went off, the plane stalled, came down, and 147 people were killed sitting in the seats just through an argument. And I said, look, I said, if you two guys, I said, you take your eyes off the monitor. I said, arguing. I said, and something happens. I said, it's too late. I said, what's going to happen? Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah. And I always tell people that, if we don't get an agreement today, what's the alternative?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And that bringing the reality of the situation to people front and center, not in a coercive way, but it's the reality. If you don't reach agreement, what's going to happen? And maybe it's going to be better for them. Who knows? But
well, the prospect of court doesn't appeal to a lot of people.
No, look, and often in workplace, unfortunately, people decide they'll just leave, move on. But that's not always going to be an option. Often they love their job. It's just someone they're having trouble with. So.
Well, yeah, there's always that opportunity that we can arrange a settlement agreement, and everyone ends friends. We all end up having a. You see, we don't expect these people, when they've got a working relationship, to be buddies and God, having a pint with them at night, and and the family is around. But we expect them to, have a working relationship. That's the thing. If we can establish, we can do that. And if conflict is left, as you well know, Joanne, if conflict is left and people go into denial, we have no conflict here, we don't have any problems, into denial, eventually it bursts out like a volcano, and it's almost past the point of redemption.
Absolutely. So, and one of the things that you just said a moment ago was about what people expect. And I think that's often the root of things, isn't it? That people have different expectations, but they don't talk about it. And so someone's, not meeting their expectations, and they didn't even know that, that was what they were expected to do.
Very often, the two parties are sometimes a little embarrassed that they've got into this situation, and and they speak to each other through a mediator for the first time, online, especially online, and they didn't realize that the other person's perspective is what they thought it was.
Yes.
And and oh, right, I understand now, and it's
amazing, isn't it? And you just see this impenetrable knot that they've got themselves in just starts to unravel as soon as they start to show some understanding and recognition of the impact of maybe their behaviour or just the conflict has had on the other person.
Well, it spreads, and I mean, if you look at it from a commercial point of view, how much is it costing the organization? That's what it all boils down to in the end. Yes. How much is it costing? You know?
Oh, it's massive. The amount of time that people are spending thinking about the other person, the conflict, the issues, telling other people. We know that the dynamic of conflict, people will start trying to recruit people to their side. That's
and it spreads to partners, wives, husbands. Endless fights, and sleepless nights.
Oh, endless fights and sleepless nights. Yes, and often those secondary people get even more involved than the initial ones. They get very, very upset on behalf of the others.
And just to think, it can all be resolved by sitting down and talking to each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
and a good mediator, it's very difficult. It'll take years to become a good mediator. You know, you need a good background of understanding people and no unconscious biases. Understand other cultures. The other thing I wanted to mention, Joanne, was with online mediation, lots of people are working. I may have mentioned this before, forgive me if I have, but lots of people are now working from home offices.
Yes.
And the global multinational companies, they can be in, the employees can be in different continents or countries, different time zones, but there's still the potential for conflict. I mean, if you and I were working, we could have a disagreement, even though we're not in the same country or continent.
Yes.
So online mediation is ideal for that. How much would it cost if you and I had a disagreement and
We
it
had to
was
get face to face.
we had to get face to face? I mean,
We'd have to meet in
enormous.
Singapore or somewhere. But although I wouldn't mind coming to London, so I'll come and have it out with you over there. But
Yes.
no, we wouldn't need to. We could just
Well,
jump
yeah,
online.
we'll accommodate you. You know, we can get you some less accommodation and.
Yeah, look, I think that's the reality and definitely the direction that we're moving. Even in the 5 years since we've had Mediation Institute, the resistance to the concept of online mediation, even in the training sphere, has just changed around dramatically. 5 years ago, I'd say to people, "Oh, well, you know, you're going to be learning and practicing online." They're like, "Oh, I'm not sure." Now I say, and they say, "Oh, that's great. That's going to be very convenient."
I mean, there's a number of countries now. Their courts are online. They're doing a lot in states in America. You know, in the US, they find it very convenient. People who don't have to travel to court to pay a fine. You know, for parking fines or motoring offences, that sort of thing. In the UK, the government are spending 1.2 billion pounds on virtual courts, and they've started testing. It's going ahead. The United Arab Emirates, theirs is almost up and running.
Yeah.
It's happening in New Zealand. I know and India. You know, it's happening. 10 years ago, you hadn't an iPhone. You know, now you do everything. You know,
That's right. Yeah, it's very easy for clients to dial into their meeting like this on a phone. Definitely.
it is. It is. I mean, there's no special equipment needed. You don't need any special IT skills.
No.
Just click and you're on, and
Yeah, if you
off
can
we
click
go.
a link, then you're on.
That's it.
Yes, absolutely. So from the point of view of a mediator, it's definitely a skill set that they should be looking at cultivating now, um, to
Well,
be able
the
to.
world's changing, you know, and if you
Yeah.
don't move with the times, you get left behind, and step out of your comfort zone, and
Absolutely. So, look, I really appreciate your time. I'm realising I'm taking a fair bit of your time up here. So, look, we might wrap up, but just you know, is there anything? Actually, step out of your comfort zone is a really good thing to finish off on. But are there any other final thoughts that you had?
well, just remember, just to summarize, uh, do online mediation around the world, learn about other cultures, be careful, Eddie, don't make jokes because they may be offensive. You may think they're funny and the other person might not. You can introduce humor into a mediation. It can sometimes lower the whole tone of the thing, but you've got to be very careful. Using humor can work, but be very careful of that. And work hard, go on social networks, do the online mediation simulations, learn about other people, and step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's a wonderful summary. And I guess just thought with new mediators, co-mediating online is a very, very easy way to you know, have those training wheels on when you're first starting out. Um, as you mentioned before, you know, you can't expect to come out of training and be an expert.
That's very true. It's like learning to drive. You know, you do all the right things, and then when you pass your test, you learn to drive.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, video mediation means that you can have a mentor in wherever and
That's right.
work with them as you need to.
well, you've got nothing to lose, nothing at all to lose. We all gain from it. I learn all the time,
Yes.
every day. So, please just email me, and we get together and through Joanne, and we'll establish a relationship and do some good online mediation simulations.
That sounds wonderful. Okay, well, thank you very, very much.
Mediation Musings is a series of conversations with mediators and for mediators. So if you're interested in dispute resolution, follow the channel. We're intending to update new recordings each week. Enjoy.